Hey, welcome to Beyond Organic Wine. I'm Adam Huss, and that is just a little sample of a spring storm here at the Wine Forest Farm in Spencer, New York, especially for those of you in gentler climates who don't get to experience the energy and thrill of thunderstorms. Thank you for listening. There are some really interesting connections between lightning and mushrooms. Traditions from several ancient cultures say that lightning brings the mushrooms, and a good time to hunt for mushrooms is after a thunderstorm. And a recent Japanese study in which shiitake logs were zapped with a dose of electricity equivalent to being near a lightning strike showed that zapped logs produced twice as many mushrooms as unzapped logs. Considering that fungal soils are great for perennial wine crops, it makes me wonder about the benefits that might come from a thunderstorm sweeping across a hillside of vines and trees. And could we taste a lightning storm in our wine? I've been planting vines and trees for the last 2 weeks, and each bare root plant gets a short soak in a bucket full of water in which I've added a dose of a blend of mycorrhizal fungal spores. I'm also planting trees and vines together that share the same mycorrhizal connections. Fungi are one of the most diverse organisms on Earth. They're the most populous kingdom on the planet. An estimated 3.8 million fungi exist worldwide or more. And yet, more than 90% of them are currently unknown to science. We are more genetically similar to fungi than to plants. And here's a series of quotes from one of my personal heroes, the mushroom priestess herself, that I've put together into something like a short incantation in the same form of a healing chant that many of these quotes were likely taken from. Quote, "Cure yourself with the light of the sun and the rays of the moon, with the sound of the river and the waterfall, with the swaying of the sea and the fluttering of birds. Sweeten yourself with lavender, rosemary, and chamomile. Heal yourself with mint, with neem and eucalyptus. Hug yourself with the cocoa bean and a touch of cinnamon. Heal yourself with the kisses that the wind gives you and the hugs of the rain. Put love in tea instead of sugar, and take it looking at the stars. Jump, dance, sing, so that you live happier. I'm a shooting star woman says. I'm a trumpet woman says. I'm a drum woman says. I'm a violinist woman says. Because I am a woman of letters says. Because I am a book woman says. Get strong with bare feet on the ground and with everything that is born from it. Get smarter every day by listening to your intuition, looking at the world with the eye of your forehead. Heal yourself with beautiful love, and always remember, you are the medicine." End quote. That's Maria Sabina, a mystic, a priestess, and a saint to some, and a woman who spent her life healing others and who knew how closely the mind and body were interwoven with each other and with fungi. This is part 2 of my interview with Dan Rinke of Art and Science in Oregon. Art and Science Cider and Wine, that is. We get into even more specifics of how he makes his holistic farm of vines and trees and animals work with very little inputs, and his lessons and insights from multiple years of running both egg and meat chickens through his vineyard. There's a lot of great stuff there. His experience as an organic transition advisor, even more great stuff, and so much more. At one point, Dan mentions how his orchard planting was influenced by Michael Phillips, and I didn't want to interrupt the flow during the conversation, but I should mention now that there is a fantastic interview with Michael Phillips in the Beyond Organic Wine library, which I feel very fortunate to have recorded in the year before he died. Check it out if you haven't, and check out part 1 with Dan Rinke if you haven't, and enjoy part 2. Okay, so I think where we were, basically you had not put up a fence, and the deer came through and chewed them down to nubbins, and you were like, uh-oh, we better put up a fence. They start growing back the next year. You're like, uh-oh, we should do something, but you didn't do anything. And then
Yeah. And then, so we didn't put anything up for another year. And then the next year, the local herd of elk came through, which our herd of elk here is about 100 deep. It kind of fluctuates between 100 and 150. Um, and they came through and they literally chewed every single tree back to the hardwood. So
Wow.
anything that was tender and grew in that year got taken back down. And it was actually how we found out was actually pretty funny. Me and Kim, me and Kim came in. We had a photographer come out that was writing a story about us for a local Pacific Northwest magazine. And he's like, "Oh, let's go out to the orchard and get some pictures out in the orchard." And we're like, "Yeah, that sounds great." We've got nice big full canopies. It's the end of the season. We just picked, and so so we went out there and we get out there and literally every single tree was not chewed all the way back.
There was no orchard.
It was basically just sticks.
That's crazy. Wild. So
Yeah,
you had been able to harvest that year before
yeah.
they
I
grew.
mean,
Okay.
harvest was probably like 80 pounds. It was
Got it.
harvesting from baby trees.
Got it. Got it. Okay.
Um, yeah, so so that was the deciding factor of that we absolutely had no choice but to put up the rest of the fence then at that point.
Right. Right.
And so we got the fence up, and yeah.
Did you have to replant, or were you able to regrow? I mean, were you able to let them regrow and they recovered?
Yeah, they all pretty much regrew, and we really didn't have any major issues with that. I mean, at that point in time, we still had some dying. For those first couple of years, I was probably replanting 10 to 15 trees every year, anyways, just because they would either die from lack of water or dripper putters
Oh,
putters out or
gotcha.
clogs up or whatever, or vole goes through, or gopher chews the roots or something.
Right.
When
The
they're
voles,
yeah.
the
Yeah,
gophers.
once I got the vole guards on, the voles weren't too much of an
Okay.
issue. Every once in a while, the voles would pop up in the middle of the vole guard and chew
Using
up.
hardware cloth.
Hardware cloth is our vole
Yep.
guards. Yeah.
Right on. Yep. Seems like
Yep.
the smart professionals use hardware cloth.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean they're just like they're indestructible. I bought some plastic ones at the beginning, and all those at by this point in time, it's we're talking now on the oldest ones are 10 years. Those are like you touch them and they like blow up, and then you got microplastics all over your orchard.
yeah. Yep. So what do you do as the tree expands and grows? You just have to replace the hardware cloth at a certain point. Keep
Yeah,
an eye on it
exactly,
so you don't like strangle the tree, basically.
exactly. And I think by the time they're that big, I'll probably just remove them.
Yeah.
I'm not really to that point yet. I mean, there's a couple trees that are getting close to that. And I do have some of the bigger trees. I actually have removed them, and I haven't seen an issue. I try, of course, we're organic, and it takes, and I don't have an implement that removes the weeds from underneath the trees.
Uh-huh.
Um, so it's all hand removal, and like
Like you're weed whacking or
uh in the
hoeing.
past I have, and I do a little bit. I pretty much rely more on I have like a DR high weed mower,
Okay.
which is like a walk behind mower, like a self driven walk behind mower, and I just try to get really tight on the tree.
How
And
so you don't do the whole orchard with that. You just do around the
uh,
tree with
I do the tree line,
the
and
tree line, yeah.
then yeah, and then I do. I try to keep depending on how the season's going and depending on how much vole activity or gopher activity there is, I might do the whole orchard with that walk behind, and
Okay.
that only takes me like a week to get the whole walk behind, like putting in 4 to 6 hours a day just walking behind that thing.
Huh.
Yeah,
Okay.
it
So
doesn't
that's
take too long.
manageable. You're not
Yeah,
too hilly though.
yeah, no, it's so the orchard's planted on contour roughly.
Uh-huh.
So it's pretty flat as you go. Like it is on a hill. It's on like a kind of like a terrace escarpment.
Okay.
um,
Okay.
like a little bit of a ledge, like a sloped ledge.
Okay.
Um, but it's
Not like a 5% grade or something like that, or
I
more.
mean, it's at some points it's probably 20 or 30%, but since it's on the
Oh.
contour, it seems about it seems pretty flat as you're
Oh, okay.
following
Oh,
the
that's okay.
contour,
That's when I looked at the pictures, I was like jealous because it looks. But you can
fairly
never
flat.
tell with pictures. Pictures really flatten landscapes.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And
So
there's
if
only
you,
some spots that are more slopey.
yeah, yeah, I
Some of
gotcha,
it's flat, some of it's slopey. It just depends on where you're at on the.
gotcha. Okay, well that sounds reasonable because that's like a. I mean, it takes obviously more time than if you could just like whip around on a some big tractor that mows, like a 10-foot swath or whatever, but or even a 6-foot swath. But like, um, but it's manageable, and I'm sure it's way more affordable to that
Yeah,
implement than a tractor. First, do you own a
yeah. I mean,
tractor?
we have a tractor, but it broke down and it's sitting in our front yard. So, um,
How do you so I'll have some other questions. How big is it again? Your orchard area?
the rootstock orchard, the orchard that's on rootstock, is 4 acres.
Okay.
That has pears, apples, quince, and grapes.
Okay.
Although the grapes are all own rooted,
Okay.
mostly own rooted. I guess there's some grafted in there. Um, and then we have a 10-acre seedling orchard that is our old pasture, but that's um,
You're not
we
mowing that
use
one
we
yet.
use the Mark Shepard method of stun, which is
Yeah. I love that method.
basically like organic by neglect, and
Right.
we I basically set out a grid, and when we originally established it, I would shovel off the spot where I wanted a tree, shovel off the sod, scooped out the apple mash from the pressings,
Yep.
right in the spot, threw some compost over the top, and walked away. Put a
Nice.
stick there to mark it, and then try to keep it a little bit mowed around, um, but not too much because the grass actually helps keep it hidden from the elk.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. I
Because
mean,
we have no fence around that or
I think
nothing around those
I think
trees.
Mark talks about that actually. It's like, yeah, like you actually get a benefit from just letting things grow. It's like,
Grow around it, yeah.
I mean, I think there's an old like an old Celtic proverb that the thorn is the mother of the oak or something like that, because it's like that idea of in a successional ecology, you have like you have a meadow that becomes this sort of mid-stage thing where you have like briars and thorns and shrubs that are all that prevent the animals from
From
getting
getting
these
to
little
it.
slow growing seedlings of oaks and other trees, and then by the time they grow up out of the briars, they're tall enough that they're going to survive.
Yeah, the problem with that is
Then
in Oregon we don't get cold enough winters that will kill the briars
thorn,
back all the way.
right?
So like the blackberries will stay
Yeah, you guys
um,
have real thickets
evergreen.
along your roads.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, they're just thick, and like even if the trees grow up, they won't grow thick enough that they'll shade them out enough. And
Right,
so then there'll
right,
be no way to actually get to the fruit eventually, anyways.
right.
So,
Without hurting
so
yourself. Yeah.
my thought process is, and I'm going to start establishing that this year, um, is that I'm going to mow 1/3 of that orchard completely down. So
Okay.
every 3 years, I'll come back to the same spot and mow just to get some of the blackberries down enough that it doesn't
Gotcha.
become a completely hemmed in thicket of blackberries.
Now, can you recommend your mower? Like
Yeah, I mean, I love DR mowers.
DR
Uh,
mowers? Okay.
yeah, so DR or walk behind mowers. Now, if I had an endless pool of money,
Mm-hmm.
DR has some electric mowers, which
Oh,
I would love to get if anybody's listening and wants to buy me one. I would appreciate it.
Me too. Me too.
Me too. Me too. Um, yeah, we've got an older one. It's like a 16 horsepower, 17 horsepower walk behind. It's like a 54-inch blade.
Okay.
It's pretty powerful. Yeah, I mean it'll like you can mow through like a inch and a half, inch and a half sapling.
Wow. So yeah, and it's driving itself sort of. You're just holding
Yep,
on,
just holding on and
steering.
walking behind it. Yeah, yep.
And you say it's like high, so it doesn't
Yeah,
go. It's not
it's
like a
like
lawnmower.
yeah, it's kind of like a deck mower on the back of a tractor that you have like on a
Gotcha.
3-point hitch, but instead
Yeah,
it's in front of you and you walk behind it.
got it. Cool. Does it work like a flail mower where
Yeah.
you
Well,
could
not like
drive?
a flare. It's a deck mower, so it's a flat blade that spins flat
Okay, gotcha.
with parallel. Yeah,
Gotcha. So
parallel.
have you tried going over prunings and stuff like that? Does it work
I don't
or
think it's quite
doesn't pick them
low
up?
enough to the ground.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Okay.
I'd be afraid that would get wrapped in there
Gotcha.
because
Gotcha.
it's
Okay.
such a small blade and it's
What do you
not.
do with your prunings?
Um. Well, I used to have a 3-point hitch wood chipper, and I'd kind of walk around and chip them with that. But uh, now that I don't have a tractor, I don't have that anymore.
Right.
I'm hoping to get a wood chipper eventually sometime once I
Uh-huh.
make my millions.
Yeah.
Um, but currently, as I'm pruning in the orchard, I just kind of like cut it into like about 3 to 4 inch pieces and just put it on the ground and let the microbes do the work.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Great. Yeah, I mean, it'll break down. I mean, you
Yeah,
guys in the winter
eventually.
you get enough rain. Down here in LA, like
Yeah,
I have prunings from 5 years ago, and and they're
still there.
still just
Yeah,
hanging out.
yeah.
Um,
I mean, I've got I do occasionally rent wood chipper
uh-huh.
for like a weekend, and I'll chip a bunch of stuff because we got a bunch of trees around the property that like
Okay.
windstorms come or whatever, and we'll
Gotcha.
chip stuff
Yeah.
up. And then
Nice.
I've got like big wood chip piles that from like a couple years ago that are like almost completely soil at this point, which are
Amazing.
that's I use that for propagating new vines um, for increasing my vineyard part
Right.
section. I just
Right.
take as I'm pruning my vines, I just collect the prunings and stick them in the wood chip pile, and they'll root out. I'll
Yeah.
use this for just expanding the vineyard
You
part.
literally just stick them in the wood chip pile?
Yep, yep,
That's kind of cool.
yeah,
That's
and
a
I'll leave
great
them in there
idea.
for a whole
And
year
is
plus.
it still generating warmth, or has it completely, like, has it lost, like,
Um,
because
they're kind of it's kind of warm-ish. It doesn't get
okay.
to like 120, 130 degrees.
No,
There's
right.
not.
No,
It's just not
yeah.
enough nitrogen. Like it's so carbon heavy.
Got it. Okay.
But that old pile. So I just got a new pile going. So the new pile is going to replace the old pile, and the old pile is going to go out into the orchard this spring. That's my next project.
I really like this idea. So you just make a big enough pile of wood chips, let it break down till it's, cooler and not steaming, and you're going to cook the cuttings. It's just mostly beautiful, rich dirt at this point with a little
Yeah,
carbon structure, a little wood, whatever cellular structure still there from the woodiness, but the lignin. And then you just plop them in. Like, what spacing do you use? How do you pull them out when they root?
I mean the spacing's pretty tight because I'm trying to keep them in a section because I do have like multiple varieties going,
Right,
multiple
right.
little blocks of
So you're
varieties.
just like
Um,
literally a couple inches from each other,
yeah.
and then how do you pop
I've
them out?
probably got about 150 of my Sauvignon vines. I've probably got 150 vines in about a 3 foot or 4 foot by 4 foot or 3 foot by 3 foot square.
Amazing.
Not all of them live, and not like I probably have about 60% or so that are still alive.
And if somebody was going to do this, do you recommend putting that pile in the sun, in the shade? Like,
Yeah, I
They're
mean
good.
they're like I have zero shade where the wood chip pile
Gotcha.
is,
Okay, so it's just a
but
nice exposed
yeah,
pile. Got it.
yeah, but the thing I've noticed about that wood chip pile is it holds moisture pretty well. By
Right.
the time we're getting to the end of the summer, it's getting pretty dried out because that I don't know if the listeners really understand Oregon weather at all, but we're pretty wet until about the 5th of July because inevitably it'll rain on the 4th of July. Um, but till about the 5th of July till about beginning of August, mid August, or sorry, beginning of October to mid October, it'll be completely dry, no rain.
Right.
And then mid October through, you know, really it's through mid, about this time of the year, it's the rain really starts slowing down, and we'll, have maybe 1 or 2 days a week that have rain
Right.
until about, through mid May. And then we probably have like 1 or 2 days of rain every 2 weeks until about July. And
And
then it's,
that's like Willamette. So like if
yeah,
you're east of the Dalles or like
yeah.
Bend or something, it's going to be different. Or what about in the
Right.
south, like down by Troon and those guys down there in the Napa
That's
Valley?
much more like Northern California, like,
Right. Right.
like Napa, Sonoma-ish. Probably more
The Roseburg
Sonoma,
area,
or it's probably more comparable to like
Lake County, or
northern Mendocino. Yeah,
yeah, got it. Okay, cool.
me, yeah.
Okay. I really like that idea. I mean, I'm just, uh, I really like the idea of not having to have a tractor, and still being able to manage,
Oh, I love it.
understory and stuff like
I
that.
mean,
Yeah.
my biggest problem as a viticulturalist is, well, I have two major problems. I hate mechanical stuff.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Absolutely, I can do it, but I just don't like it.
Yeah.
And number two, I don't speak Spanish. Those are my two greatest downfalls as a viticulturalist. So any
Gotcha.
aspiring viticulturalists, start taking mechanical classes and Spanish classes.
Yeah. Well, and what's funny? I just like, so I've taken some Spanish classes. My Spanish sucks, but like I've just revived an interest in it. I'm just saying this because I just talked to Rob Schultz, and his like, he's like, number one thing is, if you're going to be in wine, you should know Spanish.
Yeah,
Like, as one of my
100%.
past guests said, like the wine industry is majority Hispanic, is the majority Spanish speaking, at least here in the U.S.
Right.
But I definitely want to talk about, you let me know about you being I'm going to put it in my words and you can tell me actually what it is, but like an organic transition mentor and advisor. Can you talk about that?
Yeah. So about a year ago, a little bit more than a year ago, I started working with Northwest Top, which is the Pacific Northwest um, uh, section of the top, which is I don't know the exact
What the
acronym. Of
acronym,
course, yeah, of course,
right?
it's governmental acronym, right? It's transition to organic production.
Oh, gotcha.
Basically, it was something that was started in a couple of years ago through the federal government. That excuse me. That's there to encourage more people to get organic certified and to start transitioning to organic. So we have more organic producers, and it's for all types of crops. And so they were specifically looking for people that have experience, farmers that have experience in organic production. And uh, since I am not really running a 90-acre vineyard anymore, I have a little bit more time, and uh, I had experience doing it. So I ran a 90-acre organic vineyard and an organic winery production. I was a winemaker for a certified organic winery also for 15 years. So I had experience with the organic processing side, and then also the organic farming side for
Right.
perennial crops for 15 years, and filling out all the paperwork and doing all the inspections and just dealing with organic certifying agencies. Um, and so what Northwest Top wants to do is they want to encourage new farmers or farmers to start transitioning. And so they want to couple a mentor with a mentee that wants to transition. So I have, how many mentees do I have now? I have one, two, three, four. I think I have five or six mentees right now, which I'm
Wow.
actually shocked because like originally they're like, oh yeah, you'll have like one, and then if you want another one, you can do one more, And I'm like, I'll do more than that. Like, so basically the way the law is written is that I can give 40 hours worth of advice to the mentee, basically free to them, and then the government pays me an hourly wage.
40 hours in the year?
Yeah, 40 hours in 1 year, and it can
Oh,
go.
got it.
And it can go, and as long well, it can go several years. Supposedly, assuming that it'll keep getting funded, it should
Right.
cover the whole transitioning time, which would be 3 years, and
Right.
then
Got it.
and then even several years into the post transition if needed.
Right.
And then there's also Top also offers um, like legal work. Like they have people that work specifically with the organic standards. So I can't legally say the organic standards say this. You should do this. I have to like I got to really be careful on like my liabilities on what to tell people because they I don't want them to come back and say Dan said do this, I can do this, and then if
Right.
like the third party certifier finds them in violation and I tell them to do something that's in violation, like I don't want to be called
Right.
liable for it. So I have to like really be careful on how I explain things, but I kind of help them through um, just like how the process goes, uh, discuss different topics on, like whatever issues or hangups they have to going organic, and it's pretty interesting, like all the different clients between the 5 or 6 different people I've probably talked to 7 or 8 people already, and some people just have chosen not to proceed,
Mm.
because I'm pretty open with people and I tell them what it takes, and like there's a couple of
Yeah.
people that are pretty hardcore conventional people that are wanting to do this,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yep.
and we have an initial conversation, and like I'm just pretty open about what it's going to take and what you're going to have to do, and and it's up to them whether they want to continue or not.
Right.
Beyond that,
What
and
has I mean, can you without without teaching a class right now, like can you talk about some of the highlights of that? Like what are the when you say you're honest about it, what does that mean and what what so this is a three-part question. What does that mean when you say you're honest about like what is involved in being honest about it? Two, what is what is it that has do you think has turned off the people who decided not to proceed? And three, like what are the major difficulties or challenges that you see people have in this transition that you're helping with?
sure. Well, let's start with the last one first because that's it.
Okay.
That's the most common
Right.
thing that I come across. The two major hangups are fungicide spray programs, and so I just tell them we'll switch everything over to hybrids. Just kidding, Adam.
I hope you are doing. Fantastic.
Um, So number one is fungicide spray programs. Like,
Yeah.
can you be completely clean of mildew? Blah blah blah. And I was just like, and a lot of times my honest answer to them is, well, what is your tolerance to mildew, or what like
Yeah.
how much of a tolerance level do you have? Because in some years, you most likely will have a little bit of mildew in some years. Not
Yeah.
all years, not all the time, but you will have some mildew at some point in time.
Right.
Like I'm not gonna kid you and say you're gonna be completely clean all the time. Um, so that's one hang up, and a discussion around a spray program. Number two is weed control. It's the use or lack of use of Roundup, or discussion around organic herbicides, or the type of options for mechanical weed control.
Right.
Those are the two main things that
Well, that
people want
that
to talk
makes
about.
sense. No, I mean, just let me understand your context a little better. I mean, in Oregon, I mean, in a other than just aesthetics and not thinking outside of the conventional box, the only sort of like what I would call legitimate use of, I wouldn't say herbicides, but the legitimate need for clearing under the vine that I've seen is in drier climates like Paso Robles, where you get this pretty intense competition for the minimal amount of rain that falls kind of gets sucked up and evapotranspired by the cover crops, if and never reaches the vine roots unless you get rid of those cover crops under the vine. And so people organically will use light tillage or clemens or something like that just to prevent that competition from the cover crops. But do you guys have that as much there? I mean, I know it gets dry, but like you guys get quite a bit of rain too.
Um,
I mean, do you need to think about that as much there? I guess is my real question.
um, I personally do not think that you do. Um,
Okay.
but what I think doesn't mean that other people here think the same.
Yeah. Got it.
The thought of competition in uh, weed competition here, I think, is very misguided. Although, you know, it potentially could really be could be something. I mean, it's so hard because it's not really being researched or researched properly.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
and I don't mean to say like I know for sure you should till in Paso Robles. Like I mean there's maybe some people that would strongly disagree with that as well, even that light tillage of like a Clemens or whatever, like a what do
yeah.
they call that? Like little yeoman's plow or whatever it's called, the thing that creates the mound under the vines.
Oh
Um
yeah. Yeah.
um I see a lot of that where you like sort of create, you're like you're like a foot out from the trunk on each side, putting in a little furrow that turns the soil up and creates this mound, and then you clemens that mound basically. And that's the alley stays untilled and
Right.
cover cropped and everything, but
Right. I mean, I would say like that's what like 90% of organic production here in the Willamette Valley is that it's clement. Like everything, like
yeah.
even if it's no till, it's still clements underneath the vine.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
like nobody, like very rarely are people under the vine mowing. Um, and are really, what I would consider a true no till system.
Right. Right. Yeah.
And I think they're, it'd be interesting to research it and look at it because there's, I think, a lot of compaction directly under the vine comes from using those no-till implements, and no matter what kind it is, like if it's a Clemens or any of them. Like a Biano that's a rototiller head, or Clemens that's a knife blade type, or um, I don't know, any of the power hero type.
Yeah.
You know, I think they create compaction, and not that they directly create compaction, but they create an environment that would allow compaction to happen, whether it's, vineyard workers stepping on it as they're going through making their passes, de-leafing, or doing canopy management, or whatever they're doing in their foot traffic, to rains going through. Like rain it on bare soil is one of the number one forms of compaction that you'll see.
Right. Right.
Um,
Plus, I mean, to create those little things, you're driving a tractor in the alley, so you're
right,
definitely doing that kind of
right,
compaction.
right, exactly. How can, and then everybody's growing vinifera that needs sprays, and if you're doing an organic spray program, like, we spray a lot.
Right.
So we're on the tractor a lot in the vineyard. So, like, any reduction of passes that we can do would be good.
What
But
are you
still, you're
doing
gonna,
without a tractor?
you're still gonna need to do some kind of under the vine mowing or something, though. Still, you know.
So, what are you doing without a tractor in your vineyard and orchard?
At my place,
Yeah, for
I mean,
sprays.
for sprays, I don't really spray anything.
Oh, okay.
I'm
Well,
doing.
your vines aren't old enough yet. Is that the deal?
I mean, the
Or you?
vines they're producing fruit. I mean,
Oh,
um,
are you using all
I
hybrids?
no, I have zero. Yeah, I have zero hybrids producing in the vineyard currently.
Okay,
Um, I have Gruner. Some Pinot accidentally ended up in there somehow.
because
Um,
it's Oregon.
because it's Oregon, it just pops up.
It's like a
Um,
weed there.
you're
Yeah.
right. It's like blackberries and Pinot Noir. It just happens. And poison oak.
Right.
Um, and Gruner. I have Gruner,
Huh.
Sauvignon, and a little bit of Pinot. Um,
Okay. Okay.
and yeah, I haven't had any, knock on wood, I haven't had any powdery mildew on anything um, as of yet. I do compost tea sprays pretty heavily in the spring, and I do have a Nifty 50, a Rears Nifty 50, and I just have a hand sprayer, it's like an aluminum spray gun.
Okay.
Um, on my Nifty 50, so it's a 50-gallon sprayer that I hand spray everything. Pull it
Okay.
around in a gator,
All right.
and I go through and I spray around the base of it. So I spray around, and this goes for um, trees and vines, and it's actually like TikTok. I got to get on it, and
Yeah.
I really like to start with compost tea sprays, pre bud break, slash green tip for apples,
Okay. Yeah.
and definitely go through and get a couple of those in through bloom until my last blooms fall.
Okay.
And then if I
So
have
the
more time and we're still having moisture, I'd like to get a couple more compost tea sprays in. So,
well, how do you apply them without a tractor? Those compost.
the Nifty 50 sprayer, it's just a 50-gallon sprayer that's a pull behind on my Gator ATV.
Okay. Oh. Okay. Got it. Yeah. Got it. That's the Nifty 50. Sorry, I
Yep.
spaced out. Okay. Great. Sorry, I interrupted your flow. So you were talking the two big challenges for people are walking away from
Yeah.
herbicides and conventional fungicides.
Fungicides and weeds. And then I forgot the first two parts of that three-part question.
Well, when you're honest with people, what does that mean? And then the you said you went from like 7 maybe to 5
Yeah.
now. The two that fell
Yeah.
away. What was their
Uh,
thinking?
I think the other thing was financial.
Ah,
So they were assuming that they would get a huge value added price increase for being
Oh,
organic, so they would like
right. Yeah.
because
They
they
were in it for
switched
the
to
money. Yeah.
organic production. There would be a high desire to for people to pay more money for organic Pinot Noir compared to conventional Pinot Noir. And
Right.
I had to tell them that in my experience. Now, again, I haven't sold organic Pinot Noir in 5 years. Like I quit in 2020 selling fruit. You know,
Right.
so I haven't seen it for 5 years. So I don't really know what the market's like. But for the prior 15 years to that, um, I didn't see a price increase.
It,
But what I saw was a differentiation
right.
from all my neighbors. I
Right.
could say, I was like, I have certified biodynamic and organic fruit that is fairly rare here in Oregon. Like, there's no other people around that really have that and available for sale. There's a couple other vineyards
Right. Right.
that can offer that.
Right.
And so if that's your desire, I have it.
Right.
And most likely most of the places, like I think, excuse me again, um, most of the people that I sold fruit to, I think over all those years, I probably had 3 or 4 people that the fruit actually went to a certified organic facility.
Got it.
And so, like, were they actually labeling it as organic? Were, very
Right.
few. Now, most of the people I sold to, especially towards the end of the time I was there, really valued that it was farmed that way,
Right. Right.
but weren't necessarily labeling it as such because their facilities wouldn't allow it
Right. Yeah.
legally.
Yeah. Loophole for that though is, put an ingredients list on and make it really big. And then you can say organic
Organic grown
and
fruit, yeah.
biodynamic grapes as one of the ingredients.
Yep.
Um, I've seen somebody down here who I thought it was really ingenious. They put the ingredients because they had so few of them, and they just put it on the front label, so it was like ingredients organic grapes,
Right.
and then like whatever yeast and whatever was
Yeah, I always wonder if
on the
they put
second line.
I wonder if they put sulfur in the ingredients list.
Yeah, yeah, I think they did. Yeah,
Okay,
like
okay.
yeah, yeah, sulfites, and yeah, sulfites, yeast. I think those were the main ingredients. And this might have been like a natural pet nat, so they might not have used sulfur. I think they did though. I think there was sulfur. Um, but yeah, yeah. Anyway, yeah, you have to be able to stand behind your ingredients and not be afraid of listing the everything. But
Yeah.
if
I
you if
mean,
you if you are able to stand behind your ingredients, I mean, if you want to
yeah,
stand behind, if you want transparency, which is kind of like something I value, then
yeah.
yeah, like then you can
Same
also,
here.
yeah,
We've been putting ingredients on our label since, I don't know, 2014, maybe earlier. I don't know. We've been
yeah,
doing it for a long time.
that's great.
Yeah.
What ingredients do you add? Does it just depend? Are you dogmatic about your winemaking?
I mean, to an extent, it'll,
Tell.
um, it's, though, besides the fruit that we have in there,
Uh-huh.
which I can't always put organic because a lot of times it's not certified organic, whether it
Right,
is
right,
farmed organically.
right.
That's a minimum for us, is that all our fruit is um, farmed at least organic,
Yeah,
or unfarmed,
right, right,
organic by neglect.
right.
Um,
You guys doing some foraging for
oh
the
yeah,
ingredients? Yeah.
yeah, especially for apples. We do a lot of foraging for apples,
Oh, okay. Cool.
and pears.
Nice.
Um,
Okay.
and then besides that, then it'll be sulfur. I mean, we don't.
Okay.
It's all native yeast, and we don't really add anything else besides sulfur.
And that's it.
Yep. And
Yeah.
sometimes we don't. Sometimes we don't add sulfur. So
Right. Right. Like your bubbles, right? I
yeah,
don't think you had. Yeah.
Yeah, anything that's got bubbles usually as a pet net, unless for some reason there was something weird happening.
Right. Right. Okay. So, um, I think you answered. That's really cool. And kind of not surprising what people are thinking about. I mean, are there any surprising things or things that you've encountered with the people that you've mentored, or helped, assisted in any way that is worth mentioning?
Uh
It's all pretty straightforward.
yeah, I think everything's pretty straightforward. I mean, it's just like, it's different personalities basically,
Yeah.
it's some
Yeah.
some people have everybody has their different concerns or different quirks, um or just different ways of dealing with things. It's like everything's a different farm. It's like a farm.
Right.
It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, you're gonna have a different answer for every single place, and there's no cookie cutter way of setting things up. And I think that's really the main point of having a mentor set up with this, is that you can you can go, and a local mentor. So it's because this is a nationwide program, and every region of the area has these. um, and you can just go and you can visit it and see the place, and know the equipment that everybody has, and know the ability of the farmer to be able to purchase or not be able to purchase equipment, and then help them brainstorm coming up with solutions, um, to the problems that they do have. you
Huh.
know
Yeah.
and,
Of course. Yeah.
um, so I mean, besides that, it's so difficult to really say, like, there's
Yeah.
I've got one farmer that's got, I think it's pretty close to a 30-acre vineyard, and it's not fenced in at all, and so they've
Oof.
got like sections that are just like total deer predation,
Oof.
and it's like almost like sacrifice. Those blocks are like sacrifice sections, and it's like, well, what can we do? And it's like, well, there's a couple products that I know that you can, like, there's pig's blood, and I've heard
Yeah.
of like hanging, a bar of Irish soap in a sock and at the end post, and or
I've heard
going to
of.
a barber and getting a bunch of hair, or going to a pet store and getting, or a pet, whatever, a pet, um, whatever,
I
pet barber, whatever they're
we
called, groomer.
we were. Oh yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. It's like dog hair or something
Yeah,
all over.
yeah.
I this as long as it's not freshly shampooed. Um,
Well, maybe that'll help. Who
maybe it
knows?
will. You're right. You're right. We mentioned Mark Shepard before we were recording. I think he mentioned eggs. He would like throw a bunch of eggs together in a bucket and slosh eggs all over his trees, and the deer seemed to not like them. Like he would
That totally
basically
makes
make
sense to me.
scrambled eggs and slosh them on raw.
Yeah, that totally makes sense to me, because vegetarians aren't going to like that.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
I mean, that's the same thing with
The pig's
plant
blood. Yeah.
skin is pig's blood.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
a lot of those project products are like pig's blood or bovine blood or whatever.
Is anybody thinking about just putting like a dog out there, even like like a friendly dog, but like obviously deer aren't going to care whether it's friendly or not. They're just not going to be excited about a dog being out
Dog
there.
being around. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I think the issue is that I had dogs at vineyards before in the past, and they'd see a deer and they would chase that deer, and this would be like, you know,
You'd lose the dog.
yeah,
You'd have to keep
yeah,
replacing the dog.
yeah. I mean, the vineyards that I mean, there's so many times that deer end up inside the deer fence, right? Well, even if you have
Right.
a fenced in area. And this
Right.
would happen with when I'd have my dog, and there would be a deer in, and that dog would just be chasing that deer, and I wouldn't worry too much because I knew that the whole place is fenced.
Right.
But if there's no fence there, like, I'd be worried that that dog wouldn't be coming back.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's that. I mean, it made me think of something else. I mean, just like a spooked deer in a, especially if it's inside a fence, you could end up with like damage to the fence, damage to the vines, the
Oh,
trellising, that kind of stuff when, a dog starts running around.
absolutely. I mean,
Is anybody there playing around with you trying or using the 3D fencing? It's like a lot more affordable than, an 8 foot deer fence, the permanent deer fence, or but it's the, just like the braided electric fence where you have a two strand on the inside and a one strand on the outside, and the one and it, the one strand, and then you have like, I think it's like a meter and a half, 3 foot gap between them, 4 foot gap between them, and so the deer with their weird depth perception, because their eyes are sort of bulging on the side of their head, they have like weird depth perception, and so when they come up to that first wire and then they see the two wires behind it, it makes them really hesitant because they think, and then especially if these are electrified wires, so like a lot of times people will put peanut butter or tape or something like that on the first wire so that they'll come up to sniff it and get shocked, and then they'll be afraid because they see that wire, they see the two behind it, and then like it's a trip, like a sort of a double repellent, like the depth perception and the electrification keeps them out. Have you any
I
experience
haven't,
with that?
I haven't heard anybody with those. No,
Okay. Yeah,
no.
it's a way more affordable, obviously, because it's just like electric fencing, where it's like that portable electric fencing. You can just, um, you know,
Yeah,
put it up.
like for sheep or whatever. For
Exactly. Right. Yeah.
uh,
So just like a three-strand system, but you need more posts, obviously, because you're creating two separate fences, like a one strand and a two strand. But
yeah,
yeah, but otherwise, just your fiberglass posts, your sort of metal corner posts, or wherever those go, and then the wire and like battery and solar setup.
right, right. That
But
sounds
yeah,
good.
apparently it works pretty well. Or can, if you maintain it. You kind of have to. I mean, that's the other thing. It requires maintenance because you have to like keep the area mowed between them, because you can't let the grass grow up and conceal the wires or anything like that. It has to be
Right,
really like stark and visible, and visible for the deer to be, you know, repelled by it.
right. Yep.
But anyway, I uh, Mike Bilton in New York is doing that. He did, and this brings me to a question to you, but he's doing a cool project there, and he's using that, just because, yeah, it's affordable. It's something you can do for a couple $100 instead of a couple
Heck
thousand,
yeah.
basically,
There
or
and
multiple a couple 10,000 for a deer fence, I should say.
right, right.
I
Well,
just,
I
I mean,
mean,
I just know somebody who just fenced a 20-acre property, and it was like, I think like 100 and something
ooh,
thousand that they spent. Yeah,
ooh.
yeah,
I mean, the other thing that you could look at too, well, in the past, I don't even know if this is in existence anymore since January 20th. But in the past, like you could get a hold of NRCS and get a hold of NRCS and do an equip claim, and a lot of times your NRCS would help you with a cost share program, putting up
right.
a fence. And this is a great program that the federal government used to help farmers with, and God knows if they help them anymore, or if they even have employees that would be able to fulfill these things.
Yeah, I
Um,
laugh, but not that funny. No, it's true. It's, yeah. I mean, a lot of great stuff. NRCS is, at least. I mean, yeah, we can't. It's hard to talk about it now because I have no idea what state things are in. Like,
yeah, I
since 2025 has happened.
I know
But
our local people. We lost two local NRCS agents, and I think we only had two. So I think we're out of, or we had one director and then two employees, and I think they're out of our county now because they were both probationary
wow. Huh.
employees. So
What? Okay, so one other question. We're still because you've had such experience with deer and elk and everything else. Have you, before you had fencing or anything like that, have you tried doing just like 5 foot grow tubes or like a kind of, just like, chicken wire that's, a 60-inch chicken wire around the area where you're planting the trees or anything like that, where you just stake something, to create like an individual protection for that
Uh,
individual plant.
yeah, I mean, I've done just regular size grow tubes for babies, and that works until they get to the top of the grow
Right.
tube.
And then it's
Uh,
it's
yeah,
like a little
but
salad at the top of it, like a
yeah,
snow cone, a
I
salad snow
mean,
cone.
it keeps them alive. Like, it'll keep the roots alive and it'll keep
Right,
the
right.
top part of them alive, but it doesn't allow, you get
Well,
to a point and you just can't.
if you have
Yeah,
elk, you'd need higher than 60 inches too.
yeah, oh yeah, for sure, for sure.
um, yeah,
Um, Me and Kim, like we started. Kim's really great at um, Facebook Marketplace and old school Craigslist listings,
yeah,
finding like old people's old junk, and you know, she started collecting a bunch of old chunks of old like fencing, like wire fencing and stuff, and we have
yeah,
a couple rounds that they're still sitting in our yard from I don't know 6 years ago, but the idea was we were going to start putting them around all the trees in the seedling orchard
yeah,
and start protecting them from the elk. And maybe we might start doing that because that orchard, the seedling orchard, we started planting 6 years ago or so, and like we hardly have it to the point where like nothing's even close to fruiting yet. There's trees that are alive out there, but they're just not getting past that point where they can get to the point of fruiting. I think it's because they just get picked away by the elk or deer every year.
yeah, yeah.
And so we need to start working on a solution to that. And I know we were talking offline about your place too, and you've got kind of a similar thing you're thinking about. So
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's kind of why I brought it up. It just, a more, also because I'm in this weird transition state where I'm trying to plant, but I know I'm not going to be able to be there year round. And,
yeah,
so I can't have a system that I can't afford, like the 8-foot fence yet that's going to cost tens of thousands of dollars.
right.
And I know I won't be able to maintain that 3D fence, which is probably like the much more affordable sort of, just deer fencing thing. So I'm thinking like, yeah,
Right,
more
an
of that.
individual thing. But the other thing too is so for us with our seedling orchard, and this is really important to Kim, is I'm more of a farmer. Kim's if you couldn't take it by our name of our business, it's art and science. I'm way more of the science and way more of like the farmer and agricultural science. Kim's way more of the artist. Um,
An amazing artist, by the way.
and so for her, it's like she really wants to make that seedling orchard available as a wildlife corridor at the same time as producing fruit. And me
Yeah,
as a farmer, I sit back and go like, well, how the hell are we going to do that? It's like,
yeah, yeah,
and but it's her point of view, and I see her point of view, and I respect it, and I want to take on this challenge and make it work. But her point of view is that while the elk were here first,
yeah.
this is the
Right.
and we need to figure out how to make this work.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, with seedlings, theoretically, you should have pretty good sized trees once they get up, right? Like,
right, exactly.
and I mean, it can work as long as you get them above elk browse height,
Yeah,
to where they can sustain themselves. Yeah. Well, like I think this is. I mean, I love everything about this. I mean, I love that it fits a practical purpose, but also an ecological purpose. And I also think like, I mean, I'm just gonna say things in support of it because it's like, you create the space for your land to evolve. I mean, um, if you need the apples, they'll be there. If you don't, there's lots of things that love apples that, when they fall, those elk will be munching on, the deer will be munching on, and, or you could think about like a second crop and have like, have some pigs in there, that
Yeah,
would love the apples
absolutely.
too. And yeah, so I mean, there's just so many things that can happen that it doesn't have to be all about, wine production.
Yeah.
We can, yeah.
And so the point about them being seedlings and being really large is that we planted it on I think it's a 60 by 60 grid. So
Okay.
wide spacing.
Oh wow,
There's a,
yeah.
there's a lot of, so this is the thing about apples and pear rootstocks is that you put apples and pears on rootstock to control their height,
Right.
not for control of insect pests like phylloxera.
Right.
Um, and so pear seedlings can be up to like 70 foot tall, which is like ridiculous. And we harvest a couple of these trees, and they're absurd. Um, and there are and then apples can be up to like 50 foot tall.
Yeah.
And so that's why we went on wide spacing. The idea is that we have more that we can before we planted this to a seedling orchard, it was our pasture. So we in the past have had cows in there, we've had sheep, we've had goats. We've kind of ran through like all the different livestock.
Gotcha.
Um,
So you can
and
do, so it's kind of like a silvopasture area now, basically, or
exactly,
will be.
that's the intention. Once we get the trees up big enough,
Right.
we can bring the animals back.
That's
But
great. Yeah.
unfortunately we won't be able to bring back alpaca, which was actually some of our favorite animals. Not that you can really do anything with alpaca except for fleece.
Right.
But they definitely they chew the hell out of trees.
Oh, just the bark.
The bark, yeah, because
Wow.
they need to file their teeth down, and they just like gnaw the hell out of the
Uh,
bark of trees.
gotcha.
We
Huh.
have a couple apple trees that they actually killed several apple trees that were in on the edge of those pastures.
Wow. Okay. Well, this is some good esoteric information because you
Yeah,
never know when somebody's thinking about implementing alpaca to like guard their flock,
guardian. I
for
mean, they're
example.
great guardians, but
Yeah.
yeah,
Um, the other thing that you've had experience with, since we're talking about animal integration, is chickens in your orchard, right?
yeah. We I currently run broilers to the orchard, and that was a long evolution of having many flocks and doing many years uh, of
Layers.
having layers.
Yeah.
Um, and we've done so many different types of layers. We've done or different methods of layers. We've gone from complete free range layers to having layers with a stationary coop that we would do free range then train them to go in at night and close it to free range to like complete free range where they were just would go wherever they wanted whenever they wanted to uh, train to just coop to or coop with a small run to uh, doing a chicken tractor in the orchard with to chicken tractor with a few hours a day of completely open free range. And what we came up with was that every single year in end of August, beginning of September, or throughout September, our entire flock would get wiped out by predators every single year.
Wow.
And I was just getting sick and tired of feeding the bobcat slash uh, coyotes or whatever it was
Right.
that given year. And so we just evolved to the point of just giving up on layers because the hard part with layers is to get those raising the chickens to the point where they're of age to start laying.
Right. Right.
And then you're making money when you're starting to get those eggs coming in.
Right.
But up until that point, you're like putting in all the work to it, and it seems like to take forever to get to that point.
Right. Right. Right.
so then, by the
Right
time
about the time.
September hits, if you bring them in March and then September hits, you get like, a few good months, three good months of eggs, and then all of a sudden they're all gone. And then you have to start over the next year.
And
It just,
did you ever have raptor predation on the
um,
layers?
I saw some attempts, but nothing that I saw success of, and didn't see that it actually was that.
Okay.
But I did see like I did see a hawk take a swoop at one and kind of try to pick one up, and was not successful. We do have a
Chicken.
nest where the Yamhill River is right across, like not too far from us, like maybe from our closest part of our property, maybe 500 yards from our closest
Oh
part
wow.
of our property, and we have a bald eagle nest that sits right over the river,
Oh
so it's
wow.
probably like 500 yards from us. So we have bald eagles that kind of fly over the orchard quite regularly.
Yeah.
And so I was always concerned about the eagles coming and swooping in, but they never really seemed to bother the chickens at all. They just did not seem interested at all.
Okay.
Um, yeah, so we kind of evolved from layers just seemed to be not working, so we went to doing broilers, and I'm on my I'm starting my fourth year of broilers this year, and I'm to the point where I'm doing uh 30 each run. I'm doing 2 runs each summer, so I'm doing
Okay.
60 total. um and I'm to a point where I feel like I'm doing okay this year. I'm actually going to try to track the do a better on record keeping, and
Right. Right. The
tracking the budget a
output
little
and
bit better.
income.
Yeah, yeah.
Got it.
In the past, I was just kind of guessing and winging it.
Is it hard to find a market for your broilers? I mean, was it hard?
Um, yeah, we're
How do
pretty
you?
expensive too. I mean,
Right.
well, the feed's expensive. You're when you use all organic feed, and you're
Yes.
dogmatic about all organic feed.
Yeah.
Um, it's expensive.
Yeah.
Uh, but I've got a lot of people, a lot of friends that are in the restaurant industry up in Portland.
Okay. Okay.
And for some reason, I'm sure some people know the skit from Portlandia, but uh,
Yeah. What do you have like a four
you got
acre?
the name of the chicken, and um,
Yeah.
yeah, but they're actually not going to restaurants. They're going to people that work in restaurants, and they're taking them home.
Oh, gotcha. Gotcha.
But yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah, I've got a couple of friends that are really into them, and really really enjoy them.
Yeah.
And so they're buying most of them. Uh, my second run last year, I was afraid. Well, I was afraid I couldn't sell them all last year on the second run, and I put it out there, and this couple just reached out, and they were veg farmers, actually organic veg farmers, and they're like, "Oh, we need some protein. Can we buy all of
Nice.
them?" I was like, "All 30?" They're like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Okay, sure,
That's amazing.
yeah."
Do you do all the processing yourself there?
We do not.
Okay.
Um, I
Oh, so you outsource the processing and
I
pay
outsource the
somebody.
processing. There's a local um, uh, poultry processor, like within less than 10 miles from, like 5 miles from here.
And is that
That,
just to keep things simple and for you and less work, like to offload to delegate some of the
yes,
responsibility?
yes,
Eh,
and I can't do it. I'm too much of a softie. I can't do
yeah.
butcher.
Yeah, it's
Um,
tough.
um,
No, it's never a fun day. Yeah,
yeah,
I know. Yeah. It's yeah, no, I mean that truly and deeply. Yeah, it's not. I mean, right. I mean, I'm in a way. I'm the same. Like it's not my favorite thing at all, and I think about that a lot too, just in terms of working with animals and birds that you're gonna eat. It's tough.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, I have a hard time eating them afterwards without
right,
even having to do the butchering. I think if I did the
right,
butchering, I don't think I would be eating them.
right.
Um, but I'm
Yeah,
getting,
you
I'm pretty getting pretty good at coq au vin.
okay?
You know, um,
Okay.
Oregon Pinot Noir works pretty good for making coq au
Yeah,
vin.
yeah. Really, it's made for it almost. Yeah.
Yep, yep, yep.
Um, no, you made me think of something else. Just the oh shoot. Oh well, I mean, definitely want to ask about that. But was there
Oh
anything
yeah.
else?
I
The
want to continue on with the birds.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, that's what I mean. I mean, I was going to ask more about that aspect, but soil was the thing that we really, I
yeah.
think I'm excited to hear about. If I remember this other thing I was thinking about, I'll say. But like the soil aspect, as a background, so we're going to talk about chickens and soil and their effect on soil. Did you do any soil prep when you were initially planting the rootstock orchard? Or did you just do it per hole? Like when you dug, you threw in a little compost or whatever, and didn't do like a full. I mean, did you ever like till the whole 4 acres or 5 acres and whatever, do whatever to it, any kind of treatment, rip it or anything at all, or like anything at all like that? What's the history of your treatment of the soil?
So history of the soil. So we bought the property in 2012, November of 2012. Was it November 2000? Yeah, November 2012.
Okay,
And the 2012 growing season, it was the entire orchard property up here was planted to wheat, conventional wheat,
okay,
winter wheat. And and we didn't start planting the orchard then until 2014. So basically between that harvest, the 2012 harvest, till 2014, spring of 2014, all we did is mow it.
right,
And then when it came to planting, essentially we just dug the holes. Like we did no ripping, no tilling, no no nothing. We just dug holes. Um, but to each hole, I really got into Michael Phillips, who's
yeah,
a holistic orchardist. Michael Phillips, who passed away
yeah,
just a couple of years, God rest his soul,
yep, the
taught
apple
us a lot,
grower,
wrote a lot of books.
yep,
Organic apple grower book,
yeah,
um, and he prescribed putting some soft rock phosphate, some azomite clay, and I think there's something else in the hole. Can't remember what the other thing is. Maybe some mycorrhizae.
okay, yeah,
Sounds about right.
that sounds right.
Um, and so I did that combination in each of the holes as we dug a hole, and we did the old adage of um, the hole needs to be twice the size and twice the depth than the size of the root ball that you're planting.
Right.
Um, and then as you plant it in, you gotta step on it lightly to get out all the air pockets, and make sure you fan out the roots as you're doing, because it's all bare rooted.
Right.
Fan out the roots, make sure they're not J rooted, and you know take a lot of care in planting each of the plants. Um, that was essentially the extent of the soil additions that we made. I
Okay.
did at the time pre-planting take soil samples, so I have um, uh,
The
um,
the test
yeah,
results. The
yeah, test results from back then. But
Yeah.
never really did anything with those test results.
Yeah. It's just a good historical
Yep,
data point,
yep,
basically.
yep. Uh,
So, yeah. Then chickens came along.
so chickens came along, and we started running the chickens through with the chicken tractor, and I was this is one of my like proud father moments. So I have one son. My son Cash was in school, came home from school, and he's like, "Hey, Dad, I got to do a science project." I was like, "Cool. What do you want to do?" And he's like, "I want to do something with your microscope because I at the time was like taking some of the Elaine Ingham
Oh,
uh,
yeah. Still
courses."
food webs. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I had a microscope that was hooked up to the computer, so you could like see like microbiology on the computer screen, and he saw me doing all that stuff.
Ah, super cool.
And he's like, I want to look at things in the microscope. I'm like, cool. What do you want to look at? And he's like, let's look at some soil. I'm like, okay. What do you want to do? Like, we could look at our fallow field, out the back door, and we could go dig up some soil on our neighbor's stuff that they farm conventionally, and you can go compare those two. He's like, nah, that doesn't sound good. He's like, how about we go out to the orchard and we look at where the chickens have been and where the chickens haven't been. I'm like, oh, that sounds really cool. Let's do that. I was like, what do you want to do? Do you want to like look at total biology in the soil? And I'm, keep in mind he's a fifth grader at the time. Um, and so we go pull the soil sample, and we had to do a replicated study. So we had to pull 3 samples. So
Right.
six samples total, three where the chickens were and 3 where the chickens weren't. Um, we get through the very first sample of doing total biology, bacteria, fungus, and nematodes.
Yeah.
It took us about, I don't know, an hour and a half, 2 hours to go through that one slide. And of course, he like lost interest in like the first 20 minutes, and we did the nematodes first because they were the easiest.
Right. Right.
They're super easy to see, less lower magnification, uh,
Right.
real easy to see, worm looking like things. Um, and so we get done with it, and he's like, "Dad, this is just taking way too long." I'm like, "Yeah, you are a fifth grader. This is a little complex." I was like, "How about we just look at nematodes?" He's like, "Yeah, let's do that." So then we just decided to look at the nematodes, and we didn't look at mouth parts or anything like that. So we don't know if they were beneficial or parasitic or what type of nematode they were. They're just strictly nematodes. And the results ended up being that there were more than double the amount of nematodes where the chickens had been compared to where the chickens had not been yet.
Huh. And did you do any, just on your own looking or have a sense of the other biology?
Yeah. I mean, with that first one slide that we did, there was definitely more. There was more bacteria, more fungus. Uh,
Right.
I don't remember the exact results. I do have them somewhere on my computer. I can pull up, but I don't remember the exact numbers.
Right.
Um, but there definitely was more biology for sure.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I love that. So did he win?
Uh, I don't think that they actually like this was
Like a project. It was just
this
like
was an
homework.
alternative school, so
Oh, gotcha.
they
Gotcha.
didn't like
Okay, good. Yeah, no, I just totally imposed,
yeah. But
corporate
the
capitalist
science teacher
values.
did come up to me. She's like, "So next year, would you mind like coming in and giving a demonstration to the class?"
That's awesome.
I was
Yeah.
like, absolutely. It just happened that the school ended up closing because that was like right during
Ah,
COVID time, and it was an alternative charter school. It was just
it's too bad.
attendance issues and funding and all that stuff. So
No,
Yeah.
that's really cool. Would you come to my school and give a
Yeah.
presentation?
Sure. Let's do it.
You are actually currently. That's really cool. I mean, I look. I mean, I've had chickens for a long time here, and I've never done that kind of thing. I couldn't because I don't have the space to have like an you know with or without. Like I only have with options,
Right.
but
Right.
this soil is way too fertile now. I'll just put it that way. Like I'm trying to grow wine grapes here, and it's like I might as well be growing, like the high, like tobacco and corn, and like the most, like nutrition needy plants on the planet here, because I'm just like everything is monstrous, and yeah, it's nuts. Um, but yeah, I chickens seem to be amazing, and I've always thought that they would be a great thing. I mean, it's such a kind of a no-brainer, like as long as you're open to the idea of, like that polyculture system, the complexity that comes with that, the added management that comes with that, and like maybe, you can't do it all yourself, potentially, but maybe you can, depending on the size of your vineyard and how many chickens you're running, but it just seems to me like such a no-brainer. Like these chicken tractors are meant to like move a little bit each day, and they you can build them to whatever size to fit in, in rows and vine rows, and they do such wonders and maintain, both like the soil health, the cover crop, like they're essentially mowing things down for you because they love to eat,
Yeah.
they're grazing, they're also eating all the bugs and grasshoppers and things like that might, become pest issues. And they're fertilizing, they're like adding like microbiology to the whole system, they're adding diversity, and yeah, it just seems like why not, like it's amazing.
Right. And there's so much, that in so there's a couple problems. I always like to look at the
Yes. Okay.
problems,
Good. So that's the positive.
but
What's the negative?
but I mean, just to continue on with the positive is they're so much easier, in my opinion. They're so much easier to handle than sheep, cows, pigs.
Right. Yeah.
I'm
They
I'm
so easy. Yeah.
especially for people that come from the vineyard side. Like I'm a plant scientist. I went to school to grow plants. I didn't go
Right.
to school to. I don't. I never worked with animals
Right.
before I owned my own farm and started. I just bought some cows. Like I just didn't. I learned by doing it.
Yeah.
Um,
I'd love to
and it
know
was one
that
of the
way.
harder things. Like I actually lost jobs in the wine industry before because I hesitated working with
Mm,
animals. I was
got it.
supposed to order and buy livestock, and I just like I was so stuck into like researching how to deal with animals that my boss was just like, "What are you doing? Like I told you to order these animals," and I was just like, "Well, I'm trying to figure it out." It's like it was just too late. I was just like,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, but so chickens are just an easy way to kind of get that done without having to dive in way too far. It's a great way to start, I think.
Yeah.
Um, but the problems with chickens, if you're thinking about a vine row in a more conventional vineyard and a much larger vineyard than my own, like I think about it in the aspect of being at Johann, which is 90 acres, and
Okay.
your vineyard blocks are 10 plus acres in size each, and
Right.
your vine rows are 112 vines long,
Right.
and you have a chicken tractor down the middle of one of those rows, and you're in an organic spray program, and you're getting down there and you're spraying every 7 to 10 days. Every 7 to 10 days you're spraying. Like, what
Yep.
happens when you have a chicken tractor in the middle of a row and you're trying to spray and you don't want to spray your chickens? And yeah, it may just be some Bacillus subtilis or whatever your
Yeah.
biological is that you're spraying. You still don't want to spray it on your chicken.
Right.
um, how do you deal with? your chickens that are in the middle of a vine row that are 60 vines deep, and they got 60 more vines to go before you can pull them out,
Yeah.
And it just, I think you'd really have to have a well designed chicken tractor to be
Right.
able to do it. Or you do, I mean, like what we came up with there was that we would have the chicken tractor just stay at the end rows and they would be free range. Open it up in the morning, close it up at night,
Right.
and hoping that they would,
Not
hoping
get
that they
eaten.
would all be trained and come back and they would be in the tractor when you closed it up,
Right.
and they would just stay at the head rows.
And you're still doing that, or are you doing down the road now?
Well, I'm not involved there now, so I don't.
Oh, right, right,
I
right.
don't.
Sorry,
I
sorry. Yeah,
don't.
I
I
meant.
don't currently know. I'd have to call Nathan and give him a call and ask him what he's doing. But last time I kind of peeked in there and was looking at it, and it seemed like that's what they were doing still.
I meant. But at your place,
Oh
you
well, I don't have a
because it's an
tractor.
orchard, and you're
Yeah,
not
it's an
spraying that
orchard.
much, and
So, yeah,
right,
my so I use a gator for spraying, which is like 4 foot, 5 foot wide,
right.
and my tree rows are 20 by 10 on my
Uh huh.
trees,
Uh huh.
and so it's 20 foot wide. And my chicken tractor is 12 foot wide, so I can kind of sneak through
Uh huh.
around the chicken tractor, or I just don't drive the row that it goes and I spray the tree from because I use a handgun for spraying it and I'm not spraying it with a boom.
Right.
So I can stay a row over and just spray like stop the gator on those trees that are where it's at and get off
Right.
the gator and actually spray the tree down by hand with the
Right.
compost tea. And since I'm spraying compost tea, I'm also a lot less worried about spraying the chicken with
Right.
compost tea.
Right. Right.
I still don't spray them directly, but I'm a lot less worried about overspray.
All right. That's pretty cool. And I mean, predators obviously is the other maybe
Yeah,
negative.
I actually need to run out there and check.
Check on them.
I just put out my new flock this year. Yesterday.
So they're still kind of young, still
They're really
pullets.
Yep, they just got their feathers out,
So
and
do you have like a
yesterday was their
part of
first
the
flock.
farm? Like, do you have a barn or anything where you sort of start them as
Yeah, so
chick
I've got
little incubator
my
area?
my winery cidery used to be a horse barn
Okay.
that we insulated and poured concrete, and then the other half of it is like a shop where a mechanical shop and storage and
Right.
uh, that's where I raise the chickens in that section is
Got
the
it.
shop side.
Okay. Nice. Um, yeah, well, I should let you go get out there and check on them, check on the babies. But any final anything?
Um,
There's so
oh,
much. I mean,
yeah.
I
Whenever I get put on the spot, I'm just like a deer in headlights. Or
well, here was the. I mean, you say you're not spraying anything. You're using compost spray, so you're not really using like fungicides, like
yeah,
bottled
commercial
solutions.
stuff.
Yeah, commercial
Yeah.
stuff. So, but the compost teas, like, how effective do you think they are being? I mean, you're using them on your vines, and you're getting production and not having too much mildew issue.
Yeah,
So,
I think competitive colonization. The other part is um, where I am in the Willamette Valley. I don't have a lot of grapevines around me.
mm-hmm.
Because we're in the new and upcoming area where all the artists colonize first. Um,
Uh-huh.
the cheap land.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so our closest vineyard to us, I'm actually looking over there right now, is Ransom, which is where Ransom Distillery is, and they've got some Albarino over there, but they've got like maybe an acre
Okay.
uh, or a couple acres of Albarino. Um, and then like the closest vineyard to us after that is probably 4 miles away, and it's the people that we source the majority of our fruit from. Uh,
Okay.
and then it gets into the McMinnville AVA from there. So we're further west than the McMinnville AVA, like heading towards the coast.
Okay.
We're actually the closest vineyards. Us and Ransom are the closest vineyards to the actual Van Duzer corridor, not to be confused with the Van Duzer corridor or Van Duzer AVA.
Okay.
We're closer to the Van Duzer corridor than the Van Duzer corridor AVA.
Okay.
Um, to just confuse everybody. Um, yeah, so we're like halfway between like McMinnville and the coast.
Okay. Yeah.
And
Get it.
so
I got it.
so we're upwind of all the vineyards basically because all the winds come from the coast and head
Gotcha.
from there.
Right. Nice clean winds.
Yeah, so as long as Ransom, they're west of us, so as long as Ransom's clean of mildew, there's no spores theoretically blowing my way.
Okay. So it's just a nice spot too.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. There's no other. They're the only other vineyard that's upwind of me.
Well, um, thanks for this, Dan. This is, I feel
Yeah,
like, you mean, obviously you could teach several classes. So it's great to just, thanks for sharing your knowledge. And it's fun to hear
yeah,
what you're doing too.
yeah. Anytime. I feel like we've barely even scratched the surface.
Yeah, exactly. I know. Thanks again for listening. I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. I want to thank all of you who support this podcast through donations, Patreon subscriptions, sponsorships, or just posting a great review and telling a friend. You make this podcast possible, and I'm honored and humbled and inspired by your support. If you'd like to support this podcast, you'll find links to all the ways you can support it in the show notes.